Good morning, and thank you for joining the Sage Intacct Release 3 webinar. My name is Kim Anselmo, and I will be kicking off our webinar this morning with a couple of housekeeping items. Next slide, please. I just want you to know you can maximize or minimize the webinar pane during the presentation by using the red, orange arrow buttons. And during the webinar, we also encourage you to ask questions throughout the whole time. You'll see a question box in the webinar window pane that you can use to type your question in and click submit. Our presenters will answer those questions as time allows during the Q&A session at the end. To ensure you have good audio quality, please check your setting and appropriate audio option is selected. If you're using a telephone, please click the phone call audio option, or if you're listening through your computer, then you can click on the computer audio option. Next slide. If you want to receive CP credits for today, please be sure you're using a personal computer. No smartphones are allowed, and log in with your own information and your unique URL. You'll want to be logged in online software for at least 50 consecutive minutes within the scheduled time frame of the webinar. You will also need to actively respond to at least 75% of the polling questions that we'll be putting up throughout the webinar. And at the end of it, please complete the evaluation survey as well. So our presenters today are Irene Bushnell and David Gunn. Irene has 30+ years of accounting experience and involved in implementing accounting software package throughout her entire career. David is a graduate from Westmont College with a degree in economics and business and currently a consultant for managed service clients. With that, I will hand it over to Irene and David to get us started.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, everyone. This is David Gunn. Really excited to be with you again for another quarter reviewing the latest releases and functionality updates in Sage Intacct. Just to cover our learning objectives for today, first, we're going to want to identify the new release features of your solution, demonstrate the new experience and navigation so you can adapt easily, and manage the latest release of the solution for maximizing its potential. Next slide, please. Our agenda for today is going to be, we're going to cover user experience, budgeting and planning, general ledger, construction, cash management, inventory, reporting and insights, contracts, accounts payable, accounts receivable, platform and web services, Salesforce integration, order entry, and purchasing. And so with that, let's just jump right into the first slide of user experience. So the first major change here, something I'm really excited about, something I know that's going to be super useful and have definitely encountered in the past, is going to be easier access to the top level. So in the past, you might have noticed that if you opened up an entity level tab and you had accidentally closed your top level tab, you would have to completely sign in again to get access to the top level. With this change now in this release, you can navigate back to the top level from the entity level or from any level really. That's hopefully just going to save you a little bit of time and maybe some frustration you might have if you accidentally closed out that top level tab. So while this is a small change, it's a really cool one that I'm definitely excited about, and I know is going to make navigation definitely a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. Good one to start off with.
Yeah. The next in user experience is going to be kinder timeouts. So this is a new functionality where you're going to receive a notification when you're nearing the end of your session or your inactivity duration, so you can go ahead and take action before you get timed out. Now, there's two different ways you can choose to get this notification. One being that it'll just occur in the browser window. So if you're in Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, whatever browser you're using, a pop-up will just appear on the screen and say, hey, you're about to be timed out. Do you want to continue your session? Do you not want to continue your session? You can take that option, but there's also the option to set up desktop notifications. And so if your browser does provide this notification option, you can set it up in the user permissions page to allow notifications to come to your desktop like you would maybe with your Outlook or your email when you get a pop-up notification saying, you have a new email, something similar here saying, hey, you're going to be timed out. Do you want to take action to keep your session going, or do you want to go ahead and log out? So cool, another little functionality change here. And again, we do want to point out that this idea did come from community as well as the top level one we just talked about. So just keep putting the power into the user's hands, make sure you're going and voting for these things and getting things on the roadmap. And Intacct is listening and putting these into the software. So that is really cool to see. Next slide. And then finally, in user experience, we'll just talk about the default country for addresses. So you're now able to set up the default country for addresses when your company or entity has ISO codes enabled within it. So by setting up this field, your country field is now just going to auto-populate whenever you're entering an address anywhere in the system. And you'll be able to set this up by going to Company, Setup, Configurations, Company, and then Global Settings. Right in this space I have highlighted right here. You'll be able to select your default for wherever you want it to populate. So again, just another small change, but something that'll hopefully help save a little bit of time.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and start with a polling question. I'm going to go ahead and launch the first polling question. This first polling question is, which modules or features do you currently use? And we just like to get an idea as we go through today so that we can make sure we focus on ones that a lot of people are using. We wish we could offer more options here, but we have a limit in the number of answers we can put. All right, excellent. Lots of people voting, picking which modules they're using. Go about 5 more seconds. And remember that you do have to vote if you're looking for CPE. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the polling question. 3, 2, 1, closing the polling question. And then I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So it looks like 20% of people are interested in credit card reconciliation, 16 you guys use consolidations, 12% is the contract module, 35% purchasing, and 17% custom integrations. Awesome. Excellent information. This is really helpful for us as we move forward. So, all right, I'll stop sharing results and we'll continue on. Budgeting and planning. This is the add-on module that you can purchase separately from the Intacct subscription. And they're constantly building out the budgeting and planning highlights. So most of these came from users as well, these ideas. Increased visibility into your GL accounts and also some improved budget line local awareness. Importing model lines from Excel, so they've added that feature. Fixed assumptions appear in addition to the model line. So when you are creating that model report, you can actually see those fixed assumptions if you have those. And a really nice one is budgeting and planning now supports all reporting books in addition to cash accrual and global consolidation books. So if you do have other books, you can now use those in the budgeting and planning module. All right, General Ledger, David.
Great, thanks, Irene. So 2 major things to talk about here in General Ledger for this release. The first being the new look to recurring journal entries. So the big functionality update here is that you're now going to be able to create a recurring entry from any journal entry that was posted directly to the General Ledger. So we kind of want to just walk through how to do this. Irene is sharing her screen within Intacct within a copy environment. So basically, if we go to any of the general journal transactions, and specifically this one that we have at the top for an amortization entry, if we go ahead and we view it, the way you're now able to create recurring journal entries from ones that have already been posted is just going directly to more actions and then recur right there. So when you do this,
Oops. My search popped up on me. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay.
This transaction is going to copy over basically everything from the older transaction minus attachments and any other things. It's going to copy over all the information. The only thing that you're going to need to set up when doing this is just going into the schedule tab, setting up the start date, how many times it's going to repeat, how many times it's going to post, when the schedule should end, and then the email so you can get a notification of whether it's posted, it hasn't been posted, if any changes need to be made. So this is a really cool new functionality, definitely one I'm super excited about. I know sometimes setting up the schedules and creating recurring transactions might take a little bit more effort than this. So this is definitely a good little bit of automation to help you if you are interested in creating some recurring journal entries.
Yeah, and David, just as a reminder for those of you who might not know, this functionality is also available, David, I think AP bills, invoices. If you just open up a bill and go to more actions, there's a create a recurring bill, invoice, etc. So you'll start seeing that under more actions on most transactions.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
All right, and then the next thing within General Ledger is dynamic allocations across entities. So kind of like the title of this slide says, in this release, this is now possible. So for these allocation definitions that you're going to go and set up, the configuration is going to take the settings in the screenshot below. I'll kind of just leave that there just for information's sake. Don't really need to cover it, but basically what's going on here is this now allows for cross-currency as well within your cross-entity allocations. So when you're creating the allocation, you're going to want to select the source entity that's going to have a base currency, which will be used as the currency of that generated allocation. So what Intacct is going to do is it's going to use the GL posting date to determine the appropriate exchange rate for that transaction. And just a note about that is that future dates cannot be generated because those rates are not available yet. They're not able to be pulled in and referenced. So you can only choose to do this as of today or anything in the past. So a couple new cool updates here to General Ledger. I think things that people will find really, really useful. And yeah, super excited to get to use them more as it gets rolled out. And then next, we'll just jump quickly into construction. So we touched briefly on this, I believe, in R1 of this year. But the major update here is that the early adopter program is just continuing on. So what is the early adopter program? This program basically provides validated functionality to a specific set of Intacct customers who are going to basically represent the construction industry as a whole. And so during this release, early adopters who have access to this are going to, help Intacct refine the module as a whole, talk about maybe some pain points, things that they think could be done better, things that they could be updated and help really as this module gets fully fledged out and rolled out as a whole. And so what does it mean for you? If you are in the construction industry and you don't yet have access to this and you're definitely interested in maybe testing it out and seeing if it can be helpful to you, feel free to just go ahead and reach out to us and our team. We can definitely try and assist you, work with Sage Intacct to get you access to this if it is something you're interested in. So a cool new release here feature if you are in the construction industry and you think this would be useful for you.
Thanks, David. All right, let's get busy with cash management. Lots of fun things to show here in cash management. I do want to do another quick polling question, please. I'm going to go ahead and launch, and this is related to cash management and bank feeds. So are you currently using or interested in bank feeds in Intacct? No, you're not interested in bank feeds. No, your bank isn't available in the bank feed list. Yes, we are using bank feeds for at least one bank account. We are using bank feeds for multiple accounts. I am interested in bank feeds for credit cards. Let's see how people vote. I know there's been a lot of talk about it in the community and people really wanting to automate the process here. So, all right, everybody's responding. Perfect. About 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the polling. 3, 2, 1, closing polling and sharing results. So there are people who are not interested in bank feeds, and that's excellent. We understand that. Some people, your bank isn't available in the bank feed list, so that's interesting. That's something that we need to share with Intacct and make sure hopefully we can get your bank available there. Some of you are using at least one. Some are using multiple bank feeds, and about almost 50 50%, 47% are interested in the bank feeds for credit cards. So excellent, thank you for that. That helps a lot as we kind of continue on the next section here, which is all about cash management and the whole new process of credit card reconciliations. And so I wanted to walk through actually kind of showing you how it's set up, how you do the connection, all of that information, and kind of what are the advantages of using credit card reconciliations in Intacct. So first of all, the good news is it now uses the same reconciliation screen as the regular checking account screen. So that's awesome. One look and feel for all your reconciliations, whether it's a checking account or a credit card. So we've got that nice new screen ready to go. Some enhancements related to the credit cards. You can drill down from an entry in reconciliation now. So if you've got a transaction in there, you can drill down and take a look at that transaction. If you're missing a transaction, yes, you can go to the bank tab and add the transaction directly in Intacct while performing the reconciliation. Yay! That means you can send your bank feeds in. You don't have to add them manually. If you want, you can go through the bank reconciliation process and add those transactions. Filter and sorting, of course, we know that's much more robust with the bank reconciliation screen, so all of that is there. And yes, we can now reopen a credit card reconciliation if needed. So lots of flexibility came in this release for credit card reconciliations. So we can connect a credit card to with a bank feed now in Intacct. And I'm going to go ahead and do this, kind of walk through the steps here in Intacct so you can kind of see how this goes. So at the top level, under Company, we have our Admin section and we have Subscriptions. Okay, if we go down to the Subscriptions, you'll see a cloud down here. We go down to Sage Cloud Services. And I already do have it turned on, but I'll go ahead and click on the configure screen so that you can see it. And so now in this screen, you would come into the screen and you would enable bank feeds. Once you enable bank feeds, it's going to be available for credit cards and checking accounts. So there's not two separate enablements. Once it's enabled, it's enabled. You have the choice of using it for checking and or credit cards. It's up to you. Once I've went in and subscribed, you'll see this particular company has a lot of entities in it, and it allows for all of the different entities that it has subscribed. Okay, and then down here is the actual bank feed for the credit card that was subscribed and connected, and you can see that the status is connected here. So that's the first step. You want to go in and you want to subscribe to the service. Okay. Next is some new permissions related to bank reconciliation. So you're going to want to go in and look at your roles and permissions for this process, because now you'll see the old screen here, right? We only had list view, add, edit, and reverse. And now in the new screen here, we've got reconcile. We can do delete. We can do reconcile, report on it, and reopen. So here again, just like with the checking accounts, you guys can segregate duties if you need to. You can have someone be doing the credit card transactions, have that bank feed coming in every day, going in, recording those, and then somebody else reconcile it for segregation of duties at the end of the month. Okay, so new subscriptions that you'll want to, not subscriptions, Irene, new permissions that you'll want to look into here for credit card reconciliations. Then you're going to want to actually connect your card. So I'm going to come over here. I'm in a multi-currency environment, so my connection is actually at the entity level. So I'm going to go into the US entity. Under cash management, I have my setup and I have my credit card. And I'm going to go ahead and just click on edit so you can see this. And now I'll have that banking cloud tab that's here. I've already connected this, and I just connected it to my my home, American Express, so that you guys would see this today. So don't laugh at the transactions. You'll see some Lindt chocolate and some fun things like that in there, but not too many transactions. But I went ahead and connected it so you can actually see how this works. So once it's been connected, you walk through a couple of steps. The call out here is the screenshot in this PowerPoint deck, and that is when you first connect, you're going to pick the download starting from date. So that's an important date to think about because it's going to go in and download all transactions from that point forward. So that could be advantageous if you're a couple months behind. It could help you get caught up. If you are current, then you want to probably just start it, as of a certain, maybe today or as a new month starts or a new credit card period type starts. So pay attention to the download starting from so that you get the right information coming in. All right, so back over to Intacct here. So here's where it's all set up and ready to go. And this little refresh button is if you feel like your connection's not working, the refresh is here and available. And the status, you guys, is dynamic in that, let's say that whoever connected to the credit card or the bank account, passwords change, then it's going to have a status in here noting that it failed. And so you would have to come in and you would have to reconnect with the new password information. So that's all done in the credit card setup screen where you can check your connection and refresh your connection if needed. Okay. So then once we get into the credit card reconciliation itself, I'm going to go ahead and you can reconcile from here, of course, or I can go up to cash management. I can go to all, and then I can go to credit card reconciliation. I can go ahead and pick which account I'm going to reconcile. You'll also notice on this screen, last bank transaction feed was on 8/18. Okay, last bank feed date was 8/25. So in other words, I haven't charged anything on my credit card since 8/18, but the feed is current. It's through yesterday. Okay, put in my statement ending date, my balance, and continue. And of course, as I mentioned, we've got this new reconciliation screen, which is just awesome. So with the reconciliation, if you're not familiar with this, most of you should be because you're probably doing bank reconciliation, so there's not a lot to cover here, but a few things as we go through this. So now that I've connected to the bank, you can see I've got a bank tab here. So this bank tab is going to show my bank transactions. And right now I'm showing unmatched, so these are things that it can't find in Intacct, okay? If I go to all, and do my apply filters, it's going to show anything that it found and matched versus things that haven't matched, okay? So, but what's really nice about this is if I just go back to what is unmatched for transaction types, over here on the right under actions, notice that I can actually create a credit card transaction or a journal entry, or I can ignore it. So if there is a particular reason, maybe your date was wrong and it brought in the transaction, but you had already entered it and matched it, and now it's a duplicate or something, you can ignore transaction. So that's a really nice feature from your bank transactions. But I can actually go in. So if I take this transaction and click on credit card transaction, it's going to pop up another screen for me, the credit card transaction. And of course, it's going to be populated with amount, depends on, kind of how your configuration is set up, but it actually filters, adds in what the charge was over here in the description, the date of it, 8/18. I can pick the account, do my coding, and add it directly in, and then of course it would match it. It would mark it matched, and I'd be done. Okay. Really nice feature that's available here in Intacct now with bank feeds. The other thing that it gives you is if you go to cash management and we go to all, you're going to have a bank transactions tab now. So this is where all of those bank transactions are coming, and this is a separate permission, okay? If you notice that on the screenshot I showed just a little bit ago, bank transactions are their own permission. So you can have somebody not even in the reconciliation screen, and they can come here, and from here they can come in and they can view and they can do things like ignore the transaction as well. So another screen that's going to show all of those bank transactions. Okay. And then we've got the new match and go to next buttons, which came in the last release in the bank rec. Those are also all available in the screen, so that if you've got a lot of transactions, you can, an entirely new buttons pop up on the screen, and you can just match and go next, and quickly work through your reconciliation. I just shared with you how you can add new transactions through the bank screen. Also, you can ignore and unignore transactions just like you can with bank, which makes it nice in case you do happen to have some transactions in there that you need to unmatch. And you can ignore either from the bank transactions or from the reconciliation, and you can bring one back, as we saw over in that other screen in Intacct under the bank transactions. We can unignore a transaction. So if you've accidentally ignored something, yes, you can unignore a transaction. So lots of robustness, lots of really cool things related to the credit card and bank feeds and reconciliation process. Very exciting. I did want to share with you real quick, in our academy, we are doing a credit card workflow hands-on. Great learning opportunity if you aren't using the credit card process in Intacct, or you need some more information in it. Feel free to check that out if you're interested, and attend our hands-on credit card workflow class that we're doing in September. All right, off to inventory, David.
Thank you, Irene. So one major change to talk about here in inventory, if you are using the inventory control module application, and that's going to be the improved bin tracking for a more efficient item management. So bin tracking in this release has been changed to make locating items in your warehouse both faster and easier. So previously, if you have been using this functionality, you know that the location of items in a warehouse was identified by, aisles, rows, bins, or any combination of the three, but there was no association between the three, those three fields. So now bins by themselves are going to pinpoint the specific location of items in your warehouse. So your users will know exactly where inventory is for putting away and picking, and hopefully this is going to help save you both time and reduce errors when going to pick inventory. So a couple things to note here. First being that the previous bin tracking behavior is going to remain in effect for any companies that have one or more bins defined or have transactions that might use aisles, rows, or bins. So Sage Intacct as a whole at a later time is going to help those companies, if that is you, migrate to this new bin tracking behavior in a later release. And then the second thing to note here is that bin tracking can only be used for any items that have a standard or average cost method. So cool new logic here if you are using bin tracking, and definitely something that's going to help save time and reduce error, like it said.
Excellent. All right, we're going to get into reporting and insights, but let's do a quick polling question number 3, relating to reporting in Intacct. Curious what report writers everybody's using. So does your organization use the financial report writer, which is included, the custom report writer, which is included? Do you have the interactive custom report writer, which is a paid subscription? Do you still do all your reporting in Excel or other? How do you do your reporting these days? All right, looks like everybody's voting. Give you about 5 more seconds. Okay, we're going to close the polling. 3, 2, 1, close. Sharing results. All right, so most organizations are using the financial report writer. Great, it's an awesome report writer. So much power in there. Custom report writer, David, looks like quite a few people are using that as well. And a handful of people have the custom report writer there, the interactive one. Oh my, 52% still doing some Excel reporting. Obviously, you're probably doing a combination of that along with financial reports and whatnot. So,
Mhm.
and there's a handful of you that are using something else, maybe a Crystal report writer or some sort of other report writer. Good. Okay. I will go ahead and hide that and let you talk about reporting and insights, David.
Yeah, thanks, Irene. So one major change here to reporting and insights in this release, and that is going to be the change to the budgeted balance sheet accounts. So if you have imported any budgets recently, or you have been creating a budget within the UI specifically, you might have noticed this change. But what did change here? So if you do enter your budget for your balance sheet accounts directly in the UI or via CSV import, you're going to now notice that you're going to enter the amount budgeted for each period rather than the ending cumulative balance for each period. And so why was this change made? There's basically two reasons as to why Sage Intacct changed this. The first being that budgets on the whole are generally used to control activity for a specific period. And so the old end of period option, which used that cumulative balance logic across all time, really isn't a great fit for planning purposes. The change to making it the amount budgeted for each period is definitely a better indicator for your planning purposes to be able to track things, on a day-to-day, weekly basis, looking at things in real time. And then second, this change just really allows for Intacct themselves just to report, to create future reporting enhancements down the line and just better budgeting overall. Whether you're using just the standard budgeting or the budgeting and planning module, this change is definitely going to help hopefully get you better insight into your budgets, how you're tracking, and how you're able to plan by using this new logic change. And you can go next, yeah, and over to contracts.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was reading through the questions. So David, I'll take over on contracts for a few minutes. And if there's any questions in the queue that we need to answer live, please let me know.
Okay.
So contracts, a lot more organizations are using the contracts module. Intacct is really doing a lot of fun things with contracts and continuing to just enhance. So I love to see this. This is an idea that came from the users out there. So now there's more flexibility in correcting an MEA allocation. So a lot of service type companies, even like in Armanino, we use this MEA allocation. So if the reporting period is open, you can clear just one individual MEA rather than having to redo all allocations and reset them up, which is what you had to do prior to this release last Friday. One note here that this feature is only supporting straight line or daily rate recognition methods right now, but it will be supporting other recognition types in the future. Intacct is promising they'll continue to add the other types of recognitions as well. So what that looks like is you have a contract that started in January and maybe it had 2 allocation lines. Then in both March and May, the customer adds on to that contract. And so some new MEA allocations are created. Great, things are going well. July 1st comes along, a new service is added, but somewhere along the way, the communication got messed up and the allocation was set to 6-1 instead of 7-1. And so you want to be able to clear only that 6-1 MEA allocation. So you can see here, the first screenshot on the left is prior. We can see each of the MEA allocation schemes, and we can see that current one on June 1st that's supposed to be July 1st. And then you can see this screen, Clear MEA Allocations, now has the option to clear only the last active MEA allocation. And so you can check that box, clear that, only that one, and you can see in the bottom screen then it actually goes down and you see that that one line item was inactivated by the Clear One process. So if you are using MEA allocations, that's a really nice new feature that's going to allow you to just clear the last one and not touch all of the other ones that are set up and going along just fine. Some other contract enhancements related to MEA allocation schemes in both the report object that's available in the custom report writer and on the list view, they've added more fields. So now on the report object, contract line numbers are included if you need that on a report. The number of contract lines in each MEA and the status of each journal in the MEA. So some more fields there in the custom report writer for the schemes. And then on the list view, they've added the allocation status, the effective date period, which is a nice one, and again, which journal it affects. So they're continuing to add more and more information around those allocation schemes. A few more contract enhancements. So permissions are now more secure, and that is users now have to have edit permissions in order to edit contract schedules. Okay, in the past, if you could add, you could edit, but now you have to have permissions to edit contract schedules. There is a drill down on the contract line number. If you're looking in the contract line grid, so now you can view, you can drill down and view all of the contract line. There is support for automatic application of inline credit. So remember over in accounts receivable, Intacct had that new functionality. We've talked about it in our new release webinars where you can automatically have inline credits applied to an invoice. And so now there's support for that if you're using the contract module and sending invoices over from contracts module. So that's awesome. And the last contact information included in renewed contract, the latest contact information is now included in the renewed contract. So if you have a renewed contract, the latest contact information is included. So lots of really nice things related to contracts. Any questions that we need to address? David, are you doing okay answering?
Yeah, I think everything's okay for now.
Thank you. Let's keep going then. Accounts payable. So some nice new things with accounts payable, and that is some new buttons in our pay bills screen that allows you to apply credits, and clear the payment amount, and it automatically updates the field amount to pay field when you do that. So let's go ahead and get back over in Intacct, and at the entity level, I'm going to go to accounts payable and I'm going to pay bills. And I have a bill for Peterson Advertising, and Peterson Advertising has an adjustment document. So let me pull in Peterson Advertising here. I'm going to just select Peterson and click my apply filters. And you'll see down here at the bottom that I have a bill for Peterson Advertising and there's a credit available. So when I check the box here and then I apply credits, it automatically recalculates the amount to pay. You might remember that, you might not, but before it didn't automatically put in the amount to pay. Can also clear payment amount, clear credits. So these are new buttons that are here that are available, kind of a new look, and so some more functionality around that particular area. Another thing in accounts payable, which is kind of cool, is that you can finish paying a partially paid bill, even if that payment hasn't completed the payment workflow. Okay, so let me show you what that means, and let me show you how that works. So in this same screen, I'm going to go to a different vendor here. I'm going to go to iProgram. And I'll show you that I have a bill set up for iProgram. The bill is for $10,000, and if I look at the line details, you're going to see that that bill has two lines, one for $7,500 and one for $2,500. Okay, if I come in here and I pay $7,500, I'm partially paying, I'm basically paying one line on that bill, and I go ahead and click Pay Now, and you'll notice that I have a payment method of check. So we all know that I have more steps to do still, but look what Intacct did. It left me in the pay bill screen and it says, oh, there's still $2,500 left. You might need to pay that as well. If I come over to if I come over to accounts payable, view payment requests, you're going to see that I have this payment request of $7,500 still sitting here because I still need to go print the check and confirm it in the system. So this release, what Intacct is allowing you to do is if you have a partially paid bill, you have not finished the process of paying it, it allows you to still be able to go in and finish paying it and create a second document. Hopefully that excites some of you because I know sometimes you want to do something in 2 checks, so that's nice. I do want to share, there's a caveat with this. Let me go ahead and cancel this request. I'm going to come back over to my screen and I'm going to apply filter again and have it refresh and bring back my 7,500. Remember, this has 2 line details. If I come into the line details and I want to pay 2,500 of this one and 1,000 of this one and save it, so I'm paying 3,500, but I'm partially paying different lines. I pay now, look, darn it, I don't have the rest of the bill to pay. So it does not work if you are partially paying different lines. But if you are partially paying one line or you pay in full one line and not another line, come back to my view payment request. Of course, that's going to be in here now. I would have to finish the process now in order to do that when if I partially pay multiple lines. So a nice tip there, but one little caveat based on how you're doing it. But if you need to continue paying a bill, you can do that. All right, most of you guys have heard the 1099 non-employee compensation form is back. So this is a form that the IRS had quite a while ago. They dropped it, moved everything over to the 1099 miscellaneous form, and now they're bringing back the 1099 NEC. Anybody bet it has something to do with COVID and all of that and tracking all of this information? Hard to say, but could be part of it. So what that means is in Intacct now, you can actually go into a vendor. Let's go ahead and get back over in Intacct. I'm going to go back up to the top level where I have my vendors. And if I have a 1099 vendor, and I've got a vendor in here with my initials on it, so I'm going to go in and do that. When you go into that vendor now and you go to the 1099 form, you can actually go in and you can change the form. And so I can go ahead now and I can select the NEC form. It's way down here at the bottom. Once I select that form, I get a different drop down. Is it non-employee compensation, federal, state, etc.? And once I click on save, there's a very important pop-up that's going to happen, and it's not going to come to you guys because I already answered it. My apologies, but I do have it on the PowerPoint here. So this question is, do I want to update all transactions for this year and the prior year? So think about that. If you have a new 1099 vendor and you only have transactions for this year, you definitely would say, yep, update all of these to this new form. If you have a vendor who you paid 1099 miscellaneous last year and you also are paying them this year, you might not want to update previous transactions with this particular prompt, but rather use one of the other options, which with 1099s, you can update via a template, and then you could just pick the 2020 transaction. So pay attention to the prompt and make sure that you answer that correctly. Okay, everybody get ready for 1099 season. Accounts receivable, David.
All right. 3 major changes here in accounts receivable. We'll just touch on the first one right now, and that is the new configuration option for prevent editing on AR transactions after print or email. So now you're going to notice a new checkbox that's going to be in your AR setup configuration menu. That's going to allow you to check this off to prevent users from being able to edit transactions after they have been selected to be printed or emailed. So one call out we want to make here, and it's kind of noted in the configuration option itself, but if you do this You will not be able to obviously edit after a transaction has been selected for print or email. So just make sure that when you are doing this, it needs to be kind of like the final draft, the last thing of sorts. No changes will be able to be made after this configuration is selected. So if it is something that interests you, just make sure you take that into account before going ahead and checking that off and saving in your configuration. Next slide. Next is the waterfall logic update. So you may remember that in R1 of this year, Irene kind of touched on it earlier, but in terms of AR payments, there's this new logic that was released called the waterfall logic that was released to almost every company, but not those that had any customizations to AR payments that were using maybe smart events, rules, any other customization to AR payments. So now in this release in R3, this has been pushed to completely every single company now, and those who did have those prior customizations, those are going to still work as they were configured originally. So Intacct has kind of worked around those smart events and those customizations to make sure that their new logic that was applied to everybody can also work with those. And this is going to be enabled by default in everyone's company going forward. And then finally in AR, just a small change here, but this is going to be in regards to AR payments for both reporting and customizations. And so you might have noticed now if you do kind of mess around with creating smart events, rules, any reports, that there's now going to be a single object for AR payment. So in the past, there were two objects, which is AR payment, and then there was also AR PYMT. Both of them were both referencing AR payment, but both had kind of different fields and different things that they were referencing specifically within an AR payment. In this release, those two have just been completely merged, and you're just going to notice it as AR payment as a whole. Again, just to provide, to reduce some confusion, to make sure you are selecting the right thing. You don't need to question, am I choosing the correct AR payment object here? You'll know that this one is just the correct one. And a cool thing about this too is it merged both of the fields, obviously from both objects, and so it's going to have even more fields than its predecessor. So a cool new little change here, but one that's going to be helpful and help to reduce confusion, specifically within AR payments.
Excellent. Thanks, David. Real quick, a couple of questions that are coming in about this new 1099 form. So let me just remind folks, remember that your vendor object is updatable. So that means that we can export a list and import it back in. What you want to do is you want to create a 1099 view so that you can see your 1099 information for your vendors, right? And then up here in the right-hand corner, notice that there is an export with a CSV for import. So if you export it as a CSV ready to import back in, you can go ahead, export that to Excel, change the form type and the box number, and re-import it back in and update a lot of vendors at one time. Okay, so when you do that, though, I have not tested, David, I doubt you've had time either. I don't know if it automatically updates the transactions then or not. Remember the prompt that comes up if you do an individual vendor. So it probably will bypass the prompt and either update them all or not update them all. I would have to do some testing on that. The only call out here is that remember when you import, if something is blank, it imports a blank. So make sure that you have a nice clean file that you export out and then save that, then modify a different file so you can always go back to your original if you need to, but then you could easily import back in with the NEC and the one as you see on my screen. So great question. And David, in our support desk, David is happy to help anybody with that process if they need it.
Yep.
Okay, platform and web services, some little things here, but big things for developers. So there are two new menu items under Platform Services you might notice. One is Installed Components, and that is available now so that Platform Services, your developers can see all script components and CSPs installed in a particular company file. And CSPs and onload scripts are all automatically included in the application wrapper now. Your dev team will know what that means. So make sure you share this with anybody that you have working in platform services. The other new menu item is triggers. And so here again, triggers allow you to, you can look at all of the triggers right here from a menu item versus having to go object by object. Okay. Web Services Enhancements, there's a new lookup function that provides information. I'm not going to go through all of these. These are on the deck. You guys can read back through these, but basically related to integrations and that sort of information. So if you have any integrations, make sure that you share this with your integration team. Advanced CRM integration as well. Several new things here you'll want to share. One is there's a whole new integration CRM for nonprofits. It's in the early adopter stages still, and if you're interested in being part of this early adopter stage, you can contact your Sage Intacct account manager to see if you're eligible. And then there's all sorts of things that are happening related to the nonprofit Salesforce integration, real-time integration of contracts, accounts, projects, automated upgrades and enhancements are happening. And then based on feedback from the current early adopters so far, in this release, they're going to be adding support for user-defined dimensions, all sorts of other little things that are happening with the integration for the NFP package. So if that's of interest, please reach out and let us know, and or your CAM at Sage Intacct. We are getting down to about 9 minutes left, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to keep going with some more fun things that have happened. David, back to you on order entry.
All right, thanks, Irene. Yeah, so let's just talk about several new enhancements here to order entry as a whole. First of those being you now have the ability to import custom fields for your recurring transaction templates. So this has kind of been functionality for some other templates, other import templates that has the ability to import custom fields. This has now been extended over to the recurring transaction templates. Again, the aim of this hopefully to help you save some time, reduce your effort, because usually the process would be you would obviously have to import your transaction or your template file and then go in and manually input those custom fields. And so now obviously you can just do that in one swoop by importing the file as a whole. So cool new addition here to hopefully help save you some time. Next order entry. Ooh. Sorry, Irene, can you go back? Yeah, no
I'm
worries. I just
sorry.
got to, all good.
I'm sorry.
No worries. The next is you're going to be able to track who turns on and off your recurring transaction templates. So the audit trail now shows a really detailed timestamp, the user who performed this action, whether it was changed from on to off or off to on. In the past, the audit trail wasn't necessarily as descriptive as it will be now. So a good change here just for audit purposes in terms of the recurring transaction templates. Third thing here is that you're now able to configure your order entry draft transactions to ensure they're not flagged as printed or emailed, which is going to allow you to continue to edit them in a draft state. That's that configuration option shown right there on the right in the screenshot. And then finally in order entry, the last enhancement we want to talk about is the ability to create dropship and buy to order transactions in the vendor currency. So if you are set up as a multi-currency company and you also use dropship or buy to order transactions, the purchase transactions that are automatically generated for the sales transactions are now always going to be in the vendor currency if you choose to set it up that way. So previously the logic and how this worked is that purchase transaction used the same currency as the sales transaction. If you are looking to have it in the vendor currency, if that is something that would be helpful for you, there's now an option to set that up. So overall in order entry, 4 really cool new enhancements. Hopefully that will, again, help you out as much as possible. Next slide.
Okay, now we're ready for purchasing.
Yeah, now we're ready for purchasing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So purchasing, kind of like order entry, a few new enhancements here. The first of those being the ability to create an additional posting in a transaction currency. So again, this is a new config option for multi-currency companies only, so that additional postings are posted in the transaction currency and not the base currency. So posting in the transaction currency is going to ensure that any journal entries that are created are consistently recorded for all posting transactions that are going to be in compliance with the rules for multi-currency transaction posting as a whole. So the transaction currency should be converted to the base currency using that exchange rate in effect at the time the transactions are posted. So cool new change here to the additional postings. And then just like in order entry, just like I just mentioned in the order entry slides, purchasing also now has the enhanced functionality within the audit trail to track who turned on and off the recurring transaction template. So this was pushed to both purchasing and order entry, seeing as they both kind of use these transaction templates. Next slide.
All right.
All right, and then our last topic of the day is going to be global consolidations and multi-currency. So first, in consolidations, we just want to talk about the change to entity-level GL accounts for global consolidations or multi-base currency companies. So we've seen that some companies choose to share a majority of their GL accounts among their entities. On the other hand, there are some companies who might just want to create entity-specific GL accounts just simply because each entity requires its own separate GL account. So in this release, Intacct is now allowing for variations in GL accounts across each entity. So as you may know, some people might have already found this functionality, but Intacct did already support creating GL accounts at the entity level in a multi-entity environment to accommodate for differing accounting preferences across countries. This wasn't the case though if you did have consolidations or multi-base currency, but obviously in this release, that support has now been expanded to companies using global consolidations or multiple base currencies to allow for you to be able to enter and create entity level GL accounts if that is something that you would find useful. So cool new expansion here if that functionality does interest you. And then finally, we're just going to touch on multi-currency. Probably one of the coolest features I think of this release is the new ability to auto-create a journal entry from the reevaluation report, and that'll be in the general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable. So this is a new functionality specifically that uses the offline process of running reports. And so there's a specific workflow you're going to want to go through. So before you begin, you're just going to want to make sure that you have a gain and loss journal created as well as a gain and loss account if you don't already have this set up in your system. And then after those are created, you're just going to want to make sure that this account and the journal that you just set up or had set up are set for the reevaluation reports within your general ledger configuration. And then specifically when you do go into the report, the GL, AP, AR, reval reports, you're going to want to make sure that you check off this box that's shown in that screenshot below. The auto create draft JE when offline is selected. So then once that is checked off, you have your gain and loss journal and account set up. You're going to go into the report, enter your parameters, your filters as needed as you would usually run it. And then the only difference here is that you're going to make sure you're going to run it via an offline process, which is either the memorize or the process and store functionality. So when Intacct does process the report on the back end after it is done processing, a draft journal entry is going to be auto created. And so then when you go check out your list of all your journal entries, you're going to see that draft journal entry. You're just going to go ahead, review it, make sure it looks correct, and then go ahead and post it. One thing to call out here is that if you do need to reverse this entry, you're going to have to manually do this as there is not currently an auto reverse feature. So if you do need to reverse it out the day after, make sure you have a little note saying that you need to do this because the draft JE gets auto-created, but unfortunately there's no functionality at this time for an auto-reverse. So really, really cool new functionality here in reevaluation reports if you are set up as a multi-currency company.
Absolutely, very exciting, thank you. And I do want to launch the last polling question because I know some of you want CPE, so you do have to answer polling questions. The last polling question, features from today. How will you be implementing some of these? Hopefully, everybody can vote here, at least a few of them, hopefully, maybe many of them, we'll see. Hopefully not too many people say none. Hopefully something in this new release. There was a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I know we're at time. For those of you can stay on for just another minute, please do, and we'll kind of wrap up. If you do have to go, we understand. David and I always try not to go the full hour, but there's just always so much information. We might. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close polling. 3, 2, 1. Great. It looks like 87% of you are going to at least use some of the new features. A couple of you, many of the new features, and a few of you are saying none. So that's unfortunate, but maybe there's something out there along the way as we go. There are a few more questions that were not answered. If we did not answer it, we will reach out to you via email and answer the question. As a reminder, we have the Academy for additional classes. Sage Advantage is online this year, a 2-day virtual experience. So hopefully you received an invitation to register for that. If not, reach out to us and we can certainly make sure that we forward you the registration, or we can help you find that spot. I'm really looking forward to an online Advantage to see how they kind of play that out. Apologize, we don't have a lot of questions. There is an evaluation after this. Really, really love your feedback. We've been improving based on feedback from prior ones, so continue to give us feedback on this new release webinar. And I can stay on for just a couple more minutes. If anybody has a live question, I'm happy to answer it. David's email and my email are in this PowerPoint, which you'll receive. You're always welcome to email us afterwards as well. Nobody has any live questions. We'll just finish answering a few that were in the Q&A via email and let everybody get back to their busy, busy days. Appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.